Hello everybody and welcome to Pravus Gaming and more Plague Inc. Evolved Custom Scenarios. I have a full list of recommendations and some of them are going to be on the popular tab for this month and some are not. Let's start with the North Atlantic Embargo. Now last I saw this didn't have any major ratings, so it's a pretty unplayed scenario. There we go. But it sounds kind of cool, so I want to give it a shot. The USA, Europe, and Australia have cut all ties with the whole world, other than themselves, of course. In other words, USA, Canada, Australia, and all of Europe will only send ships and planes to each other and nowhere else. That may not sound too bad, but this will give you much less chances to infect the island nations, including Greenland, and overall, there will be less ships and planes. Do you have what it takes to infect the world with so little travel? See, one of the reasons I like the idea of this scenario is not just because it's created by somebody called President Eggman, but because this actually is more reminiscent of the actual official scenarios, right? You just tweak a couple of mechanics, namely, boats are far less frequent in certain areas, and how does that change your playstyle? That's kind of clever. So let's go ahead and give this one a shot and see if it's any good. Oh wow, you can choose what you want to do. Well, the obvious way to get around this is the Nurak swarm, but that would be cheating. We're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to do a simple bacteria type. We'll just see if this is possible with that instead. Nurak swarm, necrovirus, simian flu. All three ways of getting around the mechanic and completely invalidating the point of the scenario. Metabolic jump, genetic mimic, aquacytic extremophile, and symptostasis on normal difficulty. We'll just leave it as PAX 12. I don't care. North Atlantic embargo, infecting the island nations is going to be a bit harder. The most wealthy nations in the world, have decided to shut out the rest of the world. How do you infect countries with so little international travel? Well, you still start in Saudi Arabia and hope you get a good land connection. Actually, I'm inclined to think that we are really going to need to go for the birds for the land transmission to get me into places like Europe, and we really want to get a lot of water transmission to have a chance of getting in some of those islands. This is going to be a tricky scenario, I can already tell. I'm trying to think through the major implications here. Yeah, I'm seeing far less of these boats going around. So we should be able to get into places like India, China, and so on rather quickly. This can still be done if we can land our way up towards Sweden and Norway and so on in Europe. I don't know if Russia, I guess Russia would be considered cut off, right? I mean, they're not part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, so presumably? So yeah, and if Greenland is a part of NATO, then I can't rely on Russia to get me in there. So really the only way to get to Greenland is going to be frickin' Norway. Yikes! Okay, that scares me a little bit. We'll go for some basic air transmission first. Always a good choice if we're going to start off in a desert nation like Saudi Arabia. We do still want to get out of this country as quick as we can. We'll also go ahead and pick up some water for good measure. And then I think we do work toward the birds. Land transmission will be my friend. And then we're going to have to work really, really hard to get a lot of cold resistance, I think. Cold and drug resistance, if possible. Let's see. I would like to go for things like the rash. They're always quite good. Sweating, of course, nice in the cold countries. Sweating and pneumonia both, I would say, are going to be a necessary component of this. Skin lesions, quite good for the infectivity. Yeah, there's some extra severity, but as we start to get into other countries, we're going to want that extra DNA, so I'm okay with that. It's going to cost me 8 DNA to get up there. All right. I have to remember my classic Mega Brutal build orders, because I actually think that that's relevant here, even on normal difficulty. All right, let's go ahead and pick that up. Then we're going to go for the coughing and the pneumonia and the sneezing, maybe. Hypersensitivity down here after cysts is also going to be quite good for us. Do I want to go for birds too first? Maybe. The extra land transmission could make a world of difference. I just don't know. It's such a simple concept for a scenario, right? I mean, you'd think who gives a crud? It's not, this isn't some clever Bowsette theme, right? No, of course it's not. But that doesn't mean that it's not a good concept for a scenario. My favorite ones are the ones that just kind of take the game, the base game as it exists, and turn it on its head and make you think outside the box. I like that, personally. Let's go for the cold resistance. Actually, going for bacteria here might have been a very good choice, because we do have the opportunity to get some extra bacterial shells for even more resistances if needed. For now, we're going to go for the drug resistance. And I think I will go for hypersensitivity for the extra infectivity in the rich countries. We still have not gotten into Europe, though. That's the big problem here. Or have we? No, we got into the Balkan states, so we're not that far off of being able to spread. All right. All right, well, we'll give it a shot. One thing we have to be very careful about is not picking up a lot of lethality too early on. That would be a problem. Huge problem. Okay, we're in Norway, so now we want to focus everything we can on getting through Norway as fast as possible to have a chance of getting into Greenland. Ways to do that would possibly be to go for rodents for the extra urban region transmission. Air does not do anything for me right now. We're already maxed out on some cold resistance there. We could go for the bacterial resilience to make it even easier, but I think right now we might be okay. I am going to go for some rodents then. That'll actually make it a lot easier to spread in places like the United States and Europe as well, eventually. So that'll be a helpful catch-up mechanic. We just got a lot of DNA from something, and I'm not sure how that happened. Let's go for the air 2, and then we will work to the extreme bioaerosol. Still want to be able to use that to get around in Europe and everywhere else a little bit faster. I mean, all we have to do is infect like one major NATO country like Italy, and all of a sudden everything else should basically become opened up, right? We just have to cross that magic threshold. We're going to go for some extra bacterial resilience. And then probably drug resistance, I would think is the best call. So let's do that. And I could hold on to my points and try for necrosis. I just have to be very cautious here. If we have too much lethality too early on, we're going to have problems. But what else could I do, really? Abscesses is not bad. Paranoia can be helpful to slow down cure efforts, which I'll go ahead and pick up. Everything else has some level of lethality. Sneezing's very good. Anemia doesn't matter that much to me right now. Could go for some more rodents. And I will. Alright, let's hold on to that for now. Getting into Canada. Excellent. Come on, Norway. There's the boat into Greenland. Is that everything? Okay, hang on. We're actually missing Australia, of all places. Wait a minute. Who can get into Australia? It just occurred to me. Do any European nations fly into Australia? Is it just New Zealand? There we go. Yeah, it is New Zealand. New Zealand, I think, is the only way to get into Australia, then. I don't know if there are any European airports that are tied to Australia. Fascinating. We're going to go for the necrosis. We're also going to go for the seizures and the insanity to slow down the cure quite a bit. And then the pulmonary fibrosis working toward that total organ failure. So we managed to get into all other countries, regardless. Oh, I didn't even realize we were missing Iceland. Ah, okay. No, it's fine. We're good. We're good to go. We're good to go. Let's go for the total organ failure and the coma as we kill people. Shouldn't affect us too much. Dysentery helps a lot. Tons of lethality. But with necrosis in the corpse transmission, I think it is all but assured that we are going to be victorious. All right. That was a quick scenario. Very quick. But I liked it quite a bit. I like the concept behind that. Just change things up. You know? Let's go for a little bit more genetic reshuffles, just kind of buy myself as much score as possible. New Zealand is in anarchy. By the way, this is basically a mega brutal strategy I just followed as well. Didn't actually change all that much. So for those of you who are trying to follow things along on the bacteria, which I know I still get requests for that sometimes, that is one way to do it. We'll go for the systemic infection as well as the tumors and stuff. Any little bit of extra lethality will certainly be nice. And that should pretty much wrap things up. Come on. Come on, little stragglers, just plop over dead. It's already over. Just admit that you're dead and roll over and die. Because that's how it works. All right, there we go. All right, cool. Eliminated all life on Earth. Surprisingly, not 3 stars. That's because we were just a little bit over a year. 396 days, 18% cure progress, 64,300 points. 2 stars in total. Didn't actually change my playstyle all that much, but it did a little bit. You want to go for that land transmission a bit early, really focus on those resistances, and try to break into Europe in some sort of way. I mean, I guess you could also start in Europe, the wealthy countries, which is always going to put you at a pretty bad disadvantage, but then you're going to get locked out of a lot of other places, too. So I really do think that land transmission becomes the way to win this scenario. And then little other modifiers like knowing, for example, that only one boat from Norway to Greenland is going to be your option tells you what else to focus on, like the rodent transmission and so on. Australia, of course. I didn't even think about that one until it was too late. Thankfully, we got to New Zealand early, so yeah. Pretty good. I like the idea behind this scenario quite a bit. It's simple, but it's elegant in its simplicity. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If so, then be sure to hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.